Now I was hated by 2 fan bases because I was getting flack from Browns fans for my video and flack for Bears fans. I was just trying to make a Myles Garrett trade.
He's trying to make it sound like he didn't appreciate being reached out to by both fan bases.
What was it that you – good afternoon to you both. What was it that you said that was so controversial?
It wasn't controversial, and maybe that's why I'm getting it from both angles, because maybe it makes sense. They asked me from ESPN Cleveland's social media page, can we make a deal for Myles Garrett? What are you willing to offer?
And what did you offer?
I offered 10.
Okay,
and
great.
I offered next year's 1.
I would take it.
And then I said, then we can discuss some other picks around, but that is my main offering. And are you guys willing to listen?
Okay, 2 things. Number 1, he's not getting traded. Kevin Stefanski said the same thing today. He said he is part of our present and our future.
Damn him.
Yeah. Look, a lot could change between now and week 1, but they're adamant, and I believe them. They're not going to trade him. Number 2, if they were to trade him, and I don't want that to be the case, to be very clear, I would rather have him go to a team with the 10th overall pick as opposed to a team with like the 29th or 30th overall pick. No way. Give me 10. Give me 11 with the 49ers, although, they have Nick Bosa making $30 a year. That's not going to happen. But I'd rather get a good pick than a bottom-of-the-round pick.
Yes, sir.
Let me ask you before we get into some more details on this. You know the Bears well from all the time that you watch the NFL, that you cover the NFL, even though now you're the voice of the Browns. You know the league. You know our team. You spent a lot of you started your career in Chicago. If you were the Bears, and the flack that I get from Bears fans and the ones who don't want this to happen, and don't get me wrong, I'm not pounding my fist on the table saying the Bears must get Myles Garrett. I'm saying, of course you would want a player like this. You don't find these players often, so I would be interested. People are saying to me, you never draft and develop in Chicago. They would not, and that he's 29, he's already older. Haven't you learned your lesson before? You keep your draft picks, and you just draft and develop. If you were coming at it from a Bears fan perspective, would you want Myles Garrett?
Yes. Everything you just said is true. He is also the best defensive player in football. And you can make an argument that this year he was better than he was the year before when he won the Defensive Player of the Year. He is a great, great human being. He will make your team better. And again, he is the best defensive player on the planet who regularly gets triple teamed. Not double teamed, triple teamed. He makes your team better. Now, you got to pay him, and that number begins with a 4 in all likelihood.
We've got money.
All right. And, I mean, if you're willing to pay him $150 over 4 and send the Browns 2 1s, I think they'd listen, but they're not going to listen because they don't want to trade him. I mean, they would have to be so blown out of the water where it would be, guys, hey, we should listen to this, but they're not going to trade him.
You obviously have a dog in the hunt, and that's not a bad thing. That's a good thing.
DAWG.
Oh, very good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. You know what? We did that together.
Go,
that was
buddy.
teamwork.
Look at that.
How close do you think the Browns are to actually winning?
And that's where the Browns and Myles don't see eye to eye.
Right.
All right? That is the root of this issue here. The Browns will tell you, and they're accurate, look at the calendar, that 13 months ago they were in the postseason. Right? They had an 11-win team. They were in the postseason. And that, look, it home went sideways last year for a long list of reasons. But that if you just get the quarterback, and Houston and Washington picked second in each of the last 2 years, and they got a quarterback and then immediately went to the postseason, just get the quarterback right, like we can go back. You know, I think the pragmatist would step back and Myles would step back and say, hey, we're 2 years older, right? We're more expensive. I don't see it as much as you see it, but you guys know this. 35 consecutive years, 35 straight. You've had at least 4 teams make the playoffs that didn't make the playoffs a year ago. I'm convinced they could be a playoff team next year with the right quarterback, but they need more than a quarterback. Your O-line's getting older. You need plenty of more pieces on defense. Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, who I think is one of the top 3 linebackers in football, his status is very much up in the air. He did not return from a midseason neck injury, and no one's saying a lot. So they have some holes, certainly, and Myles is aware of that.
It's interesting because, look, I subscribe to the theory. I mean, if you can do it like Howie Roseman, then do it like Howie Roseman. Not many guys can do that. So sometimes you can eliminate some of the risk by trading some of your draft currency for an already proven player. I'm cool with drafting and developing, but if you have a history of not being able to do that successfully, then I think you should access the trade market, and that's why this is something that is appealing to me. Do I think they'll trade him? Probably not. But again, as you mentioned, whether it's the Washington Commanders or who had the Minnesota Vikings winning 13 games this year on their bingo card?
Exactly. No one did. No one did.
So I would think that based on what we saw this year, there's probably less of a appetite for a team like the Browns to trade a difference-making player in this environment opposed to, compared to several years ago.
They think they could turn it around. But they also have to nail the draft.
Of course.
So they haven't had the first-round pick in 3 years. They traded him off for Deshaun Watson. They're at 2, but they're also at 33. Like, they have to have a bona fide starter at 33. They have 67. They have 94. The Amari Cooper trade was fantastic, or 96, whatever it is. Amari Cooper, they got more from Buffalo for Amari Cooper than they had to give up to Dallas to get the guy 3 years earlier, and he's 3 years older now. So, look, they have 5 picks in the top 105, whatever it is. They have to nail those.
Mm-hmm. As far as the Bears are concerned, we had Ben Johnson on yesterday. I don't know how much you saw of the podium at all.
I did not see his podium. I did see he's willing to cut off body parts thing.
Oh, was that with Big Cat?
Yes.
Okay, and we got to talk about that too. But what do you think of him? Because we asked him the question, and Ryan Pohl said the one thing that he's learned from him in these last 5 weeks is the book on him was supposedly like he's more of an introvert and he's not an outgoing guy, that it couldn't be further from the truth.
Yeah.
And I asked him about that. I said, why do you think that was? And he said his job was to score as many points as possible until he was told not to score points. And maybe Dan Campbell's persona is the thing there, and it was all about him being an OC. He said now that he's a head coach, it's up to him to show more of the personality. We know he's got the playbook. What do you think of him as far as being a figurehead for a team?
He's won the podium so far from the minute he walked into Lake Forest with that video in the lobby. He has, I think, won every single interview he's done. Now, I would say the same thing for Aaron Glenn. So both of Dan Campbell's coordinators who got head coaching jobs, they have won the podium. Now, they got to go win games. I am optimistic. With any coordinator, there is an unknown. You ran one side of the ball and you didn't have a lot on your plate on game day, but running that side of the ball and calling plays. You got to get up in front of the whole room. You got to run the whole organization. You set the pace. You are the man in charge. How do you transition? Some have done it well, some have not. I think all indications early on are positive.
Do you like what he has done with his staff? He made I thought a great point about not hiring his friends. He wanted some,
Sure.
some different views and some different thoughts coming from different guys. And hiring Dennis Allen, a guy with a former head coach in the NFL, I like that for a first-time head coach. How do you feel about an addition like that?
I agree. I think any first-time head coach, if you can have a former head coach, and he's a two-time former head coach on your staff.
Who's probably not going to get another look at that.
Probably not going to get another look, who's been a coordinator as well and a good one. I think that is a good thing. I think there's also like the opposite, where you have too many cooks in the kitchen, where what Frank Reich had a couple of years ago in Carolina, where they had not only like 3 former head coaches on the staff, but like 3 guys that had already been tapped as that guy is going to be a head coach one day as well. That did not go well, but this staff, so far so good.
You like it? Yeah, I do as well. I really like Dennis Allen, like you said. I think that, his having experience and also being an excellent defensive coordinator as well. I mean, he's got a resume that I think is very impressive.
I'll make real quick. I'll make a Sean McVay comparison here. When he took over, also a younger offensive coordinator, he brought in Wade Phillips to be his DC.
Right.
Wade Phillips, former head coach, obviously. And there were times, Sean's rookie year, where he's like, all right, I'm going to be over there with Jared Goff on the sideline. I'm going to be there with the offense. He's not even, literally wasn't even watching the game. And Wade Phillips could take over. Dennis Allen, I don't know that Ben wants to do that, but here's a young play caller who's got a lot on his plate. If he wanted to, there could be a similar setup.
I have a huge deal of respect, and I love Sean McVay. I know you had a ton of
100%.
access to him. You think he's the best young coach in the league? I know that's deep water because there's a lot of good coaches.
I'm going to say this with all due respect to Kevin Stefanski, who I love, and every other head coach I've ever been near or worked for. I want to preface that. I'm not speaking poorly of anyone else. I love Kevin. Sean is one of one.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean that every coordinator that ever goes through there or becomes a coordinator, becomes a head coach, is going to be a good head coach because they're all trying to do what he does. But he's different, man.
Yeah.
You feel it in every interaction. He is different. He also really embraces bringing in exceptionally bright people to have it almost like a coaching lab.
Yeah.
Like, I'm going to learn from you and, I don't say intellectual conversations. It's not like you're in Paris and it's like a cafe with all the writers hanging around, but he really does embrace that kind of culture.
It feels like Ben has done something comparable to that, which is also very encouraging.
And what I like about that, too, is, and I'll make a baseball comp. Tell me if you understand this. When Theo started dominating and doing his thing in baseball, there were all these guys off the Theo tree, and they started get general manager jobs. Mm-hmm. And a lot of them didn't have the success, obviously, like Theo. They were all, we got to get someone off the Theo tree. It's kind of like you got to get someone off the McVay or Shanny tree. And then we're seeing some of these aren't as good the further you get on that tree.
Sure.
Not every branch produces fruit.
And it's why I like Ben Johnson. Ben Johnson's not really from – Ben Johnson's his own offense. He's from Ben Johnson. He's taking a little bit from here, a little bit from there, a little bit here, and he's not sort of the copy. And so I think in a league where you have too many guys who are like-minded, especially offensively, it could be bad the other way.
Sure, and
because like you said, McVay is one of one.
Yeah, I also think that what makes Sean's thing a little bit different is it hasn't all been offensive guys. He's had two defensive coordinators become head coaches. Now, Raheem Morris had been a head coach in a previous life. Brandon Staley, was an inside linebackers coach at Denver, then became
he was with the Bears too.
Yeah, exactly. So Bears, the whole Fangio thing, then obviously got to L.A. And now he's back as coordinator as well. So he's put two DCs into head coach.
How do you think the whole thing with Stafford resolves itself?
So that one's interesting. I do think there's a good chance Matthew goes elsewhere, and it really does come down to money. It's not that they're trying to be cheap in any way, shape, or form, but last year Matthew had an issue with his contract. It went all the way up to the first day of training camp where Sean delayed his introductory presser to open camp 3 hours as they were trying to hammer out a deal. And what they did is, you guys know, they took money from this year and money from 26 and moved it up to the point where his contract is now very, very below market. I think he wants something with a 5. I think they would prefer something with a 4. I know there was a little bit of frustration midseason last year as to how Matthew was playing. But at the same time, the O-line was in shambles. Yeah. Both receivers were hurt. When everyone got healthy late in the year, Matthew turned it on. And they really do believe there that if they had finished that drive in Philadelphia in the snow, that they would have won the Super Bowl. I know that sounds absurd. Don't quote me on that. Don't make that the clip that goes viral here. But they would have then gone home and hosted the Commanders. They think they would have won that game. They had 15 sacks in their 2 playoff games.
Yeah.
15. And then you look at the Super Bowl, they would have gotten after Patrick Mahomes as well.
Yeah.
Now, it's a big leap to say they get in the end zone in Philadelphia, they are winning the Super Bowl, but they were that close. They also have, because they have really drafted well.
Well, I was going to say, Les has done a job comparable to what Howie's done at the line of scrimmage.
They have that bill's about to come due.
Yeah.
All right. Puka is heading into year number 3. Byron Young heading into year number 3. Kobe Turner heading into year number 3. Kyron Williams is already there. So, those guys got to get paid. And then the class after, they're going to have to pay those guys. It's a money issue right now. And Sean has, not an arrogance, a confidence to him. He loves Matthew, and they have a good personal relationship here.
Yeah.
I think there might be part of him that would like to see, could I win with Sam Darnold or win with Jimmy Garoppolo? Not that they're eager to do it. They'd rather do it with Matthew, but they also have a bill, and they're looking at the economics, and we have to pay that bill eventually.
But really quick, or not really quick, I don't want to do this really quick, but I wanted Joniak's coming up next, and he got here early. Jeff Joniak, voice of the Bears, outstanding guy. I wanted to do this because this has been my dream for years, and I don't think the four of us have ever been on together. So way back in the day, when we were all friends, and Jeff wasn't our teammate, I always wanted to work with him. But Andrew Siciliano and I were friends with Jeff because these two worked together on the old WMAQ.
And Andrew survived to tell about it.
So what I want to know is, and you, speaking of trees, you have the tree.
The Joniak tree.
Look, you hired Mike Greenberg. He still calls you boss.
Yes.
Greeny calls you boss?
Yeah.
Yes.
He still
that's
talks
awesome.
about it. Yeah, he told us.
That's
awesome,
pretty
yeah.
cool.
And you hired Andrew Siciliano out of Syracuse.
Yeah. Sight unseen.
How much time do you have with this? Because
I'm
this story
it'll
gets
go long.
longer every year.
Yeah, but listen, I was doing morning drive. I pop in tapes. I was looking for a sportscaster, and and I turned it off within 10 seconds. I go, who is this guy? And so I called him up right away, and he was sleeping on his couch in Syracuse.
I was not pleasant on the phone.
And he hung up on me. He thought it was a crank.
Did not
Yes, he did.
It's like the
Yes, he
Randy
did.
Moss, Bill
Yes, he
Belichick
did.
story.
He's
hang
wrong.
up.
Yes, he did. Really, what'd you do?
I answered the phone like, what?
You
Because I thought
thought it was a prank.
I was staying. So my lease was up. I had graduated. I didn't have a job. So I stayed with my buddy. My buddy, Matt Park, who's now the voice of Syracuse, and he has been for many years.
Everybody from that school's a voice of something.
Well, Matt's from there, and so that's like his hometown team and job. Anyway, long story short, I was doing news at 570 WSYR, the big news station. I had covered City Hall or a warehouse fire
In fact,
or something
you
like
did tell me it
before.
was a City Hall meeting.
Right,
I
okay.
remember that for some weird reason.
And this was an early morning call because he was doing morning radio and has no sense of time zones and whether or not
Correct.
I'm waking anybody
And
up.
you're a kid. You better answer the phone and take the job off.
I didn't
right?
have a cell phone, and so he called my buddy's it was on my resume, my buddy's home number, and he's like, yo, it's for you from the other room.
Can you imagine
And
this?
I'm like half asleep, and I thought it was someone from the radio station telling me to go out and there was a car wreck on 81
So you
or
had to go
something.
out and go
I'm
work.
like, what?
Yeah.
And he goes, Andrew?
He was uninterested.
Yeah. Jeff Joniak, WMAQ Chicago. And I'm like, oh! Yeah, and then I woke up.
You thought it was a prank.
Yeah.
So then he called me back, and he claims this didn't happen, but I hung up
Maybe.
on him. I told him,
I don't-
you
I
got
don't
the job.
remember that part.
But anyway, yeah.
That's the Disney movie version.
So think about today where you got to go through 15 interviews to get a job. I didn't even know what he looked like. I hired him.
Would you have hired him if you knew what he looked like?
When they said, hey, Mr. Siciliano is downstairs for his first day on the job.
This part is true.
And it was at NBC Tower, and it was the home of the Jerry Springer Show.
Yeah.
Oh, my
So
goodness.
I have no idea. Remember now, I
they're all
have zero
lined up?
pictures.
They're all lined up in the lobby. Remember I used to do that around
And
the
so
corner?
I'm
Yeah.
in the elevator, and the elevator door opens, and I'm not tall, but he's shorter than I am, and I'm looking, and I literally went like this, because I didn't. There's no way this is the guy with the great voice, and no, I thought it was a Springer Show guy.
True story.
And
I had all these baggy khakis and a braided belt. Remember the braided belt?
Andrew, Andrew, voice of God, speaking from down to his toes. And I go, and so I'm in the elevator. I'm uncomfortable. And the first thing in my head, because we're the home of the Bulls at this time, oh, Michael Jordan's going to eat this guy alive. That was in my head. I'm like, oh, my God. But I remember being in Lou Canellis' office, and he was not officially cleared to be on the air going through training, and there was breaking news. And Lou and I are sitting on, and do you remember what it was? Because he hopped on the air live on MAQ, and I'm like, what's he doing? Wait. And he was great. That's great.
Awesome,
He's been great ever since.
What a great story.
Love this guy.
What a great
and
story.
Michael Jordan didn't eat me alive because I never asked a question. I was a human mic stand. If you watch Last Dance, you would see my my forearm in there. I rarely
Sylvia always
ask
talks about
questions.
those days, obviously, as the glory days.
He grinded. He asked questions.
But,
Yeah,
I mean,
he
was
a
that
real
just
reporter.
like the peak of – I know, it's not the top of the mountain in terms of a job, but to be able to cover that Bulls team
Yeah, absolutely.
was just a dream come true for a sports fan.
I was the luckiest guy. I mean, really, I was a year out of college. I was 6 months out of college, and I'm sitting there at Bulls games watching Michael Jordan.
Yeah.
Are you kidding me? I'm 21 years old at that point.
Same for me.
I was lucky.
All of us.
Yeah,
Yeah.
all of us. I mean, Lou was doing sports. It was called Sports Channel at the time, right? So I would.
He was on the TV end of it, right?
Yeah. So I
Yeah.
was doing post game and pre game and stuff, and I did it for free. I did it for free for several years. I would do morning drive. Not that I'm not tooting my, but
No.
I'd go to his
Yeah.
apartment and sleep on his floor after
Lou's
morning
place?
drive when there were home games, and then and then be back. I mean, it was.
Knowing Lou, that floor.
I was about to say that.
Come on now. Come on, I hope you put a blanket down or something.
Put one of those blue lights over that.
Yeah. You should have had Dave Savini come over and flash the blue light.
I was about to say.
Yeah.
But it was insane. It was insane. But and then in the Bears broadcast at that time, we had this feature. It was like Bear Tracks. It was
Right.
called Bear Tracks, and I'm not joking. This guy, this is in the days of finding DVDs or CDs, and to make the piece. So he would be at Hallis Hall and get sound bites, but he'd craft this story, and it had to be uber edited. And it needed music, and he would go and buy CDs out of his own pocket to make this thing happen. And, I mean, he would obsess about it because it had to be perfect. And they were fantastic. He's got a sense of humor. He's creative. He's got his voice. He was outstanding at this. And I remember our boss at the time, Rod Zimmerman, because they kept putting in, at one point, a couple years
put
in.
in a receipt for like a $7
a couple years in, he
CD.
says, "Do we really need this? Like, this sounds like too much work. Yeah, we're getting rid of it." And that was the end of Bear Tracks. But
Wow.
he was great at it. He was great at it.
And now look at everybody.
Now
Now
wouldn't be here-
I wouldn't be here without Jeff
and
Joniak.
Bears
I
and Browns
appreciate
this year too, where you two
Right,
will
it's
be
at
in
Soldier
October.
Field. Pretty
Chicago.
cool. Yeah, listen, when he got the Browns job, and he knows this. I love him like a brother, and I was so proud of him at NFL Network and everything he's accomplished. But to get the Browns job, I had tears in my eyes for him because he's a lifelong Browns fan growing up in Virginia. The son of a man who loved the Cleveland Browns. This is a big moment for him. And Jim Donovan, may God rest his soul, it was very important to me when I first started out. I would call Jim for advice in 2001, and we played them every preseason, so he was always listening, always helpful. And so we missed Jim Donovan, but a great man to put in the booth there in Cleveland. So
So good.
As we get serious.
And Jeff and I told the story when we were playing some of the Eagles highlights too. You told me, I think at the last NFL Hall of Fame induction, how
this summer.
Merrill Reese is it
Yeah.
the voice of the Eagles?
Yeah.
And
84 years old.
The guys who are nice.
Oh,
to-
yeah,
to-
Merrill
to,
Reese.
to you and others along the way, like Donovan was.
Yes.
Who pick up the phone,
to
the young play-by-play guys,
Yeah.
and are always
Yeah,
willing
I mean,
to
Merrill
talk.
been so supportive. He's been a great friend.
What a unique voice.
Yeah, unique. Philadelphia loves that guy. He just recently signed a new 5-year contract
That's
at 84
amazing.
years
Good for
old.
him.
So yeah, he
At
said they're-
84?
Yeah, the Today Show. I
Did a
think it
piece
was
with him
last-
and Mike Quick.
Yeah, Mike Quick about just his longevity and it was a wonderful piece. They're going to have to carry me out of the booth, and it's just a passion for it. And he's a great guy. He's really cool. And we're on a text chain of all 32 NFL play-by-play guys.
How cool is that?
When things come up and everybody supports each other, it's one of the coolest things I've ever been a part of.
It is.
Would you
It
agree?
is very cool. So the day that my thing became official, I think it might have been JB Long. JB Long, my good friend, the voice of the Rams, added me to it. I'm like, what is this? And then ba-doom, like literally all day.
Populates all day.
How many are in it?
Everyone.
Every play-by-play.
Everyone
voice?
except for the Houston Texans. Mark Vandermeer does not have
an iPhone.
An iPhone. So
So wait,
Yes.
every play-by-play
Yes.
guy is in this
Yes.
text chain.
yes. And when
That
things,
is
It's a
so
fraternity.
cool.
it's one of the coolest things of all time in this business.
Who
where
started it?
Wes Durham of the Atlanta Falcons West Durham is
I did not know that.
Yeah, West Durham started it just to tackle some issues involving, everything from booths to whatever.
Oh.
And it's now become a yuck, and everybody's, like the Watto and Sylvie yucks,
Of course,
You have a little yuck here and there, taking pictures of the booth in Miami, how bad it is.
Complaining about Miami, yeah.
Yeah, so
Miami's
I thought Washington was the worst.
Washington
it
is bad.
but Miami takes the cake. Yeah,
Miami's a better. I've not been in that booth in Miami.
Good
but
luck.
Miami's
You
a
play
better,
them this year?
No, they come to Cleveland
you're
for the
lucky.
second consecutive year.
You're lucky.
This
You're lucky.
year. I thought that
Tough
might have
place to
been.
call.
I thought that might have been our London game.
As Paul
but
Allen
they're going
says-
to do the Madrid game.
As Paul Allen calls it, he calls it VOX, Vox Talk, Voices of Talk. So yeah, interesting
That's
behind
awesome.
the scenes.
That's awesome. All right, Andrew.
This is a cool moment.
Yeah, that's why I
That's
wanted
great.
to do it.
Cool moment.
I thought
Thank you.
it'd be great. Andrew, great, and we appreciate how you've been a friend of ours and
Dude,
a friend of the show for
it's
so
a
many years.
Friendship thing. I love you
Were
guys.
you
I
at,
actually do
Were you at
listen.
Sylvie's bachelor party?
Yes.
Where was? Oh, at
Wrigley.
Wrigley.
At Wrigley.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I was
yeah.
there for that.
So was I.
I was there.
I remember
Tyler
we went
was
somewhere on Lincoln
10,
after the
right,
game.
on
Shotgun and
a
beers.
bus.
Yes.
On a bus.
Shotgun and beers.
I wound up with Waddle and
Gian Greco?
Gian Greco.
Yeah.
I couldn't believe what I was seeing.
Yeah.
That's all I got to say.
Shotgun and
I
beers
was
out
just-
of a funnel that was quite
Hey,
strange.
you called a hot dog yesterday.
Yeah, exactly. That's what it was. Yurko was with us, wasn't he?
Yes.
Yes, Yurko
Yurko
was
was
with
there.
us.
Unbelievable.
Absolutely. By the way, Cubs still wouldn't have won it without the rain delay. You guys know that, right?
I think that's fair.
No, I think
think
you're
it's fair.
right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
And then
probably.
the Jay Hay speech, that's his biggest contribution. He's become a big friend of the show, but
You know
No
there
kidding,
shouldn't
no
have been a
kidding.
rain delay, right?
It's got to be the shortest rain delay, not
Yeah.
even in postseason history, but in baseball history.
of course.
I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but I'd say many people are saying you should look at that rain delay.
And you
Let's get Jim Cantori. Maybe go back in the archives and look at the weather reports.
and you know the story, the behind the scenes story about the speech too, right? About we uncovered it on our show. I forgot who the first was to tell us, but it's been confirmed by the players, Arrieta and Jason Hayward. Eventually confirmed it. It was a blank Joe Madden meeting.
They were mad at how he handled the
They were
staff,
mad
right?
on the way he handled taking out Hendricks, taking out Lester, getting to Chapman too early, and what he did the day before. He assembled the players-only meeting in the weight room and basically said, screw him. We're going to do it without him, and we're going to win it in spite of him. Don't let him lose this for us. Let's win it on our own.
Wow.
One of my even more
power of the
favorite
people.
A speech that was even more a favorite of mine was, I guess Rizzo had this tradition, did he not,
you
of
love this.
standing up on the table, basically naked, and doing something Rocky.
When they were
was.
down 3-1, he
Yeah.
started doing this. He started standing up on the Cubs spread table with the food in just his jockstrap, I believe. And
There was
it
a
started.
spread.
Yeah.
And to the Rocky music and started pantomiming fighting. And then
I think did it
Game
have in
7, he
Game
was
7? Was it Hector Rondon?
yeah. And
Sprayed shoe polish all over his junk.
and he got mad.
mad.
And then this was in the book. I forgot who wrote the book. He then got mad and jumped off the table and started to sulk. And David Ross came back. He said, "You do your tradition. You get back up there. Don't worry about." And he got back up there and he did it
See,
again.
this is the beauty of championship winners.
Yeah,
These stories, because it takes a certain mentality to be a champion and have everybody on whatever sport, the number of players you need to do it. And these stories pop up that you never hear. You rip open the curtain, and that's what's fascinating
Right.
about sports.
Right.
And it's the unique journey of a champion.
When we come back, I
fantastic.
know we have to take a break. We should tell Joniak. I don't know if you know the story or not about. We learned about the Super Bowl, the Bears and Colts Super Bowl.
Yeah.
We got a little story for you.
I hope I know everything about that journey.
I hope
but
you
maybe
do too. I hope you do.
It was about the
I had
Reggie
never heard
Wayne
it.
touchdown.
Okay, I don't know.
Okay,
I don't
I had
know.
never heard
it. If I know, it'll be something I've forgotten, and you've jarred my memory.
Jeff only focuses on Prince at halftime. Clearly.
That's right.
No.